Okay, begin.
Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Dominique Sibro, and today I'm joined by Anjani and Nalini. So, welcome to our presentation. Today we'll be going over Chapter 7 Interacting in Teams and Groups. Here's just a quick little table of contents so that you guys will have an understanding of what we're covering today. And while I have you here, let's just talk about this chapter on a whole. So, with this chapter, we'll be taking you through concepts of teamwork, collaboration, and group work, and the application of the leadership model. Okay, and without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. So, to understand groups, we need to know what they are, right? But what are groups, anyways? Let's start with a simple definition. A group is considered to be three or more people interacting and communicating with each other over time in order to reach a goal. And this makes sense, right? Just think about it. Everybody in this class was put into a group of 3 to 4 people, and we all had to interact and communicate in some way or another in order to achieve our goal, which is this first assessment. But this is just one structure. And we can go even deeper to say there are many other different ways in which groups are structured. We're going to be breaking it down into the main three: purpose, structure, and time. And of course, each of these ways will have different leadership dynamics. Let's start with purpose. Groups exist for different purposes, whether it's friendships, schools, or business. The way a group is organized and operates should be shaped by what it's trying to achieve. For example, if the group's purpose today, for example, is to brainstorm ideas, then the structure might be more open and informal, where everyone is encouraged to participate equally. Structure. This is how we relate to each other in our group. It can break down into either highly structured with hierarchies and positions or undefined. We have leaderless groups where everyone gets together to do something, but there's no formal leader. Take school projects, for example. And then we have highly structured, where it has mainly just one person in charge. Take the president or the director of a business. And then we have time. Groups will exist over various lengths of time. Some are time limited, others not. Time limited groups are often called either a task force or ad hoc committee, while ongoing groups are more either called a board or a council. Time limited groups must quickly establish a common purpose so that they can complete their task, while ongoing groups have to deal with problems over time. So now that we know what groups are, what is group development and what are the stages of group development? Well, there are these main four: forming, storming, norming, and performing. Let's start with forming. Forming is the initial stage of a group development, according to Tuckman's group development model. In this stage, members must come together and begin to understand the scope of the task and how they fit into the group. This stage is often characterized by uncertainty and a desire for direction. This stage is crucial for team building. Sometimes, even a leader might need to provide clear direction, set goals, and create a sense of purpose for the group. It's a time to establish trust and credibility for the group, laying a foundation for open and trustworthy relationship that values inclusivity. So forming, right? Forming is basically you're now coming together. You're now meeting these group members for the first time, and you're now coming to say, okay, what am I to do? Where do I fit in within this group? Then we have storming. Storming is the second stage in the group development model. In this stage, group members start to address the task at hand and may experience conflict as they share ideas and opinions. Storming can involve disagreements about how to approach the task, challenges to the leader's authority, or self assertion to get their needs recognized and addressed. This stage can be short, so it either ends up being either pretty clear or pretty destructive. It can be especially challenging for the leader as they have to navigate these conflicts and work to maintain cohesion within the group. The leader has to ensure that all voices are being heard. It's a critical stage for the group to establish a way of working together effectively. So basically, storming, okay, we are all in the group and we all come together to talk about the problem, to share ideas and opinions on how to go about this problem. And of course, those ideas will clash because nobody wants to be wrong, right? So, this is the stage for conflicting opinions. Then we have norming. Norming is the third stage of the group development model. In this stage, groups begin to resolve key conflicts, develop cohesion, and establish a pattern for how the work is getting done. Members start to appreciate each other's strengths and towards more effectively work more effectively towards the group's goals. The group either sets formal or informal dynamic. Also at this stage, the group will start to deal with intimacy versus identity. For example, when you start a meeting with your group, do you always start a few minutes late or a few minutes early? When a new project starts, do you volunteer to do the work or do you wait to be invited? What is the quote unquote normal thing to do for your group? To people outside the group, these norms will be more obvious to the people than to the people inside. These quote unquote norms and practices may also describe the personality of the group. Finally, we have performing. Performing is the fourth and final stage of the group development model. In this stage, the group is highly functional. They've built a strong foundation with each other through the previous stages, almost like they've reached a stage of equilibrium. For time-limited groups, they'll have to reach this stage quickly in order to get their work done in an effective way. For ongoing groups, they need to continuously recycle these stages in order to be effective. For example, when a new member joins, we have to do over forming. Or when we need new ideas, storming. Or when we just need a new way of doing things because the old way just doesn't work anymore, we need to create new norms, norming. And in case you zoned out through everything I said, this is basically so forming. During forming, you want to be inclusive and empowering. You want to make sure everybody's involved. You also want to seek diversity to bring talent into the group. Why do you want diversity in your group? Because let's say all four of you have a problem. Let's say it's all four of us in a group and nobody has any idea on what to do. We might want to seek diversity or somebody with diverse opinions to bring us a new perspective. We also want to identify a common purpose. What are we working for? What is this group's purpose? And possibly targets of change. What needs to change? With storming, everyone's ideas are clashing. So it's important to make sure everyone is heard. You have to be open and patient to new ideas. Also, be aware if you're being biased to your own ideas. Try to revisit the group's purpose and change accordingly if you need to do so. With norming, everyone has basically gotten over their problems and has a better, not only communication skills, but collaboration skills. Any new members, they get welcomed, informed, and involved in the project. And if you reach the norming stage, everyone must have clarity on their responsibilities. And then performing. Well, performing is you've done the thing, you've performed. So everyone kind of celebrates your accomplishments. You empower each other to keep learning new things. And then you revisit and you rebuild new commitments if you are an ongoing group. But that's not it. We also have adjourning. Adjourning is the fifth stage in the model and that Tuckman and Jensen made to accommodate the closure stage that groups experience, particularly in contents where groups are formed for a specific purpose and then disbanded once that purpose is achieved. In this stage, the group wraps up the work, you celebrate, and then you disband. This stage involves helping group members reflect on their experiences, acknowledge your contributions, and prepare for the group's termination. The leader may facilitate discussions about what was accomplished, what was learned, and how this experience can be applied in the future. It's a time for closure and transition as members move on to other projects or roles.
Dynamics in groups. Next slide. In this part of the chapter, we will be looking at group dynamics. Now, what is group dynamics? Group dynamics is the study of what occurs in groups. It relates how groups make decisions, handles conflict, and how groups meet leadership needs. In other words, group dynamics involves how members work together to achieve goals or fulfill tasks. Next slide. Now, when you think of group dynamics, the first thing that should come to your mind is when a group of people can get influenced by the way members think. Group dynamics is particularly important in a leadership perspective as it creates, guides, and manages productive and cohesive groups. Now, as we are on the topic of, we can look at an example of group dynamics. Now, think about a group assignment you have had to complete. I'm sure each member had, has different personalities, communication styles, and levels of participation, in which each member may have chosen to take the role of leadership or play more supportive roles. These are certain aspects that form group dynamics. So in group dynamics, there are several key components involved, and this would involve roles, norms, creative conflict, and decision making, in which will be further discussed. Now, in these particular elements within a group, it has significant impact to the group's functioning and success. Overall, understanding and managing group dynamics is essential for creating a productive group so that they can work together effectively towards a common objective. Now we'll be looking at group roles. A key foundation in understanding group dynamics is recognizing that in any particular settings, individuals will engage in communication patterns that will signal roles in any particular group. And that is quite true. In any particular group that you've been a part, there's some form of role an individual or member had to play. Think about all the groups that you've been a part. You realize that each person had a particular role to play. Next slide. Groups depend on two roles, group building and task roles. Now, group building roles are generally actions that focuses on the group as people, whereas task roles focuses on accomplishing the purpose of the group. Now, we will ask ourselves, why is group building and task roles important part of groups? Well, to answer your question, group building is important because it improves communication, trust, and innovation amongst members. Similarly, group building is what shapes the goals of group. With regards to task role, this relates to the actual execution of the work and associated tasks. It is important as it seeks opportunity for high quality, focused interactions between your group members. Groups may demonstrate dysfunctional roles that can affect the group's progress, and this is called a special interest leader. Now, this individual makes suggestions based on what he assumes others thinks and feels. Now, this person may speak in several terms and not betray one's views and judgments. Another factor you may or may not be familiar with is a blocker, and this is someone who's always negative and disagreeable. Now, in a group setting, I'm sure no one will hope to have a blocker in a group, as a blocker's input is hardly constructive and may resist opinions of the members. As such, with a blocker in a team, the end result will be difficult to achieve, and such may result in conflict. Next slide. Next slide.
Hmm?
Think about various roles you have played in different groups. Do you find yourself playing the same role or do your roles vary with time? These are questions we should ask ourselves in understanding how us as individuals participate in groups and group activities. Now we'll look at the several types of group roles. Next slide. So some common types of group roles are the information seeker. Now this is individual is aware that the group needs more data or information before proceeding. This individual gathers all information relating to a particular project or assignment, and the information seeker would also ensure that this information ends up in the right place and seeks clarification in case of missing information. Then we will have the opinion seeker. Now, this is someone who is aware that the group needs more ideas before proceeding. This individual is often an opinionated team member who will seek clarity and opinions of others. Thirdly, we'll have the opinion giver, which is sharing one's views so that the group can benefit of what the person is thinking. And I'm sure we all have been an opinion giver in groups that we've been previously in. So this individual quickly gives their opinions on matters, which some members may find quite irritable. However, this role is very valuable in groups. Next slide. We will now be going into group norms. Every group in which we participate has have a set of ground rules for how members should act or follow. Now, group norms are spoken and unspoken rules that guides how team members interact, collaborate effectively, and work effectively. They are implicitly agreed upon rules and acts of behavior guided by the group's culture ground rules. So now group norms tend to be greatly influence interactions as well as productivity. And this is a crucial role in sustaining cooperative relationships and coordinating collective actions. So some common examples of group norms are treating every member with respect, celebrating accomplishments both individually and as a group, as well as respecting everyone's times and to be on time. Usually, group norms define what is acceptable standards of behavior. They promote consistent, uniform, and acceptable behavior. A key factor is that group norms help promote cooperation. So group norms typically reflects on the values, beliefs, and expectations of the group members. Norms can usually emerge from interactions and experiences of group members and can be influenced by several factors, such as leadership style, individual characteristics of an individual, as well as group culture. Now, in establishing and maintaining positive group norms is generally important in creating a productive group dynamic. With that being said, healthy group norms would promote trust, respect, and cooperation amongst members, while unhealthy group norms can lead to conflict and disruption within a group. Overall, group norms is an important aspect of group dynamics and can shape the overall functioning of the group. This would also allow others to achieve their desirable goal. Now we'll be looking into creative conflict. For many people, the thought of conflict is uncomfortable as most individuals would prefer peace and harmony. Now, conflict typically occurs in most group settings due to personality clashes, different role expectations, or disagreements over ideas. Now, another reason for conflict is simply because individuals or team members are pursuing conflicting goals. Now, while conflict may seem like a negative aspect for groups, which it is, there are also positive outcomes that will arise from conflict. Conflict has allowed team members to take accountability as well as new innovation and creativity. Conflict has further allowed teams to resolve situations by themselves, which also improves teamwork and group work amongst each other. In a leadership perspective, the relationship leadership model encourages individuals to handle conflict that will promote empowerment. And this leadership model emphasizes on leadership values such as ethical behaviors, process orientation, as well as purposefulness. So conflict in groups is generally common among members. However, a key aspect is evaluating how team members handle conflict and what they do to resolve conflict. Some major strategies used to resolve conflict are avoidance, compromise, collaboration, and confrontation. Now, the avoiding style is typically used when issues is trivial or when these disruptions can be costly to the team. Another style can be used is the compromising style, and this is where both members can split the difference and come to a conclusion for a particular solution. Now, these resolution strategies have been quite effective as it would have engaged members in team building. Now, I'm sure every individual or most individuals were a part of groups that had conflict and you've had to resolve or look for ways to resolve such conflict. Now we'll be looking at group decision making. Next slide. Views of leadership often presumes that a group has a formal leader with the authority and responsibility for making final decisions. Now, in most cases, the leader makes the decision on behalf of its members, and that is also known as authoritative leadership. So I'm sure many of you were part of groups where the leader made all the major decisions. So now whenever there's a situation where a positional leader is faced with making an individual decision, the relational leadership model is generally useful in guiding the decision process. So in a formal context with positional leaders, participative leadership is often taught to involve members in the decision-making process. Next slide. Participative leadership acknowledges that better decisions are made when persons are involved in the decision process. In this context, there's a difference when you look at the word allow in participative leadership. As a result, allow identifies who the positional leader can or cannot involve in the decision-making process. Now, most contexts, we will analyze the term allow as giving members an opportunity to make the decision or allow the involvement of others in a conventional way. In a formal setting, the authority and the role of participants may differ in the decision-making process, and it is solely based on the leader's decision. Now, based on Johnson and Johnson, they had 5 methods of decision making: decision by authority without discussion, expert member, average member's opinion, decision by authority, and majority control. Now, based on majority control, in this process, decisions is made based on the majority opinions of the group. Now, once these opinions are shared and discussed, a vote could be taken and the option that is favored by the majority is then the chosen decision. In the authority role, in some cases, a discussion may be made by a designated leader or an expert in which the group member who has authority will make the final decision on behalf of the group. Next slide. Now, in the decision-making process, we have a term consensus, and this doesn't mean that every decision is made by the entire group. An important factor is that in decision-making, teams will make decisions or reach a conclusion only when it reaches the consensus on critical issues. Now, in consensus decision-making, this approach would prioritize reaching an agreement that everyone in the group fully supports. This would involve discussing all viewpoints, valuing inputs, and problem solving until a solution is reached. Now, these are some following guidelines for reaching consensus. Clearly define the issue facing the team, focusing on similarities between positions, ensuring that there's adequate time for discussion and avoiding conflict, reducing tendencies. Now, in analyzing these guidelines, it is to note that not all decisions need the attention of the entire group, but the requirements of the need for quality and acceptance of that particular decision. Consensus brings the high commitment among participants and most informed by the diverse knowledge of the group. And this would require that the group becomes comfortable with handling conflict as well as willing to compromise and work together. Now, when teams fail to reach this consensus, it is often because they don't give members a chance or have time to do so. Now, group decision making is beneficial because it can increase innovation as well as more evaluation of options. With that being said, there's also challenges in group decision making, and this can be due to conflict from different opinions, difficulties in reaching consensus, as well as a longer process in making decisions. Generally, group decision making is a critical aspect of group dynamics and how effectively a group operates and achieves its goal. Now, we all could agree that decision making is important for a group to run smoothly as well as help members make effective decisions. Thank you.
Moving on to teamwork in groups. Firstly, what is teamwork? Teamwork is when a group of individuals work together to achieve a common goal or purpose in an effective and efficient manner. Strength is not in the individuals but in the team. If you put a group of superstars together on any team, whether it's baseball or soccer, and they will still lose if they continue to operate as individual superstars. But once they start operating as a team, they can become unbeatable, according to Taylor, 1989. Continuing with teams and groups. Basically, what is team? What is a team? According to Parker, 2003, he defines a team as a group of people with a high degree of interdependence geared toward the achievement of a goal or the completion of a task. According to Parker 2003, common types of teams are functional team. Basically, the functional teams, they tend to resemble a hierarchical organizations in which power and authority are contained at the top. The second one is self-directed team. The self-directed team is typically a group whose members possess all the technical knowledge and skills to accomplish a task or goal with a certain degree of power delegated to it from the leader or the manager. Then there's a cross-functional team. The cross-functional teams usually are composed of individuals from a variety of skill sets, departments, or areas that combine skill sets that no one person possesses. Teams also use the SMART rubric, which provides a framework for teams to use as they establish their goals, by Parker 2003. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. Specific simply means the goal must be clear to everyone in the team. Measurable meaning the goals are quantifiable. Attainable, the goal must be realistic and possible to achieve. Relevant, the goal is in alignment with the direction of the organization. And time bound, there is a set time frame by which the goal will be achieved or should be achieved. Continuing with teams and groups, a collection of people do not automatically constitute groups. All groups are not a team. Teams are more than just a group of people working together, by Hughes and Guinness and Kofi, 1993. This is why we have to distinguish between groups and teams. Both have the characteristics of mutual interaction and reciprocal influence. Teams have a stronger sense of identity and common goals or tasks. In addition, interdependence is higher within a team than in a group, and team members usually have more distinctive roles than group members. And the types of teams range from those that function like working groups, in which individual accountability is high, for example, with a golf team. Basically, meaning in a golf team, it's basically on one. So there's individual accountability. Whereas in team, they cannot accomplish their goal individually, like in football teams where they have to work together to win the game. And moving on to working groups versus a team. In working groups, a strong, clearly focused leader is appointed in groups, whereas in teams, shared leadership responsibilities exist among members. In groups, the general organizational mission is the group's purpose, whereas in team, a specific, well-defined purpose that is unique to the team. In groups, individual work provides the only products, whereas in team and individual work develop the products. In groups, effectiveness is measured indirectly by the group's influence on others. Example, the student scores on standardized examinations, whereas in team, effectiveness is measured directly by assessing teamwork products. In working groups, individual accountability is evident, whereas in teams, both team and individual accountability are evident. Continuing with work, working groups and teams, individual accomplishments are recognized and rewarded in groups, whereas in team celebration and individual efforts that contribute to the team's success are also recognized. In working groups, meetings are efficiently run and last for short periods of time, whereas in teams, meetings have open-ended discussion and include active problem solving. And in groups, in meeting members discuss, decide, and delegate, whereas in meetings, members discuss, decide, and actually do real work. Moving on to team learning. What is team learning? Team learning is where individuals that work together engage in joint sense making, discover, and share knowledge to achieve desired results or outcomes. Individual learning is the conventional way of learning. However, learning occurs in many different ways through group projects, experimental settings, and in study groups. Whenever a team has a shared responsibility, it has to find a way to learn together, not just learn separately. Intentional team learning requires intentional practices. Therefore, team learning happens in dialogue with each other through reflection on shared experiences. Dialogue is simply a sustained collective inquiry into everyday experience. Dialogue is built into the process of reflection, which involves them thinking together. When a team is in dialogue, participants are aware of their communication as well as its content. It is important that both teams and groups establish ground rules or norms to handle their inevitable controversies. Groups that value learning together will establish true dialogue methods, the goals of which are to learn together while engaging in change. Continuing with moving on to leadership and leadership implications. Leadership implications. In a productive work community, leaders are not commanders and controllers, bosses and big shots. They are servers and supporters, partners and providers, according to Kuzuz and Postner in 1993. Leaders in the teamwork environment are also facilitators of team learning. Participants and team leaders must all share the responsibility of processing shared group experiences to make it a conscious process as a team. Successes also need to be understood as well as the failures. Groups do not tend to reflect on why something worked but spend hours finding the errors in failures. So basically, the teams and leadership, it's not just one person, but it has to be overall in the team. Moving on to team leadership. Team leadership. Team leadership refers to managing and guiding a team of employees effectively and efficiently. Team performance and team development are two critical functions of leadership. Team performance means accomplishing the group's goals, making decisions and plans, achieving results, and solving problems. Team development includes establishing effective relationships, creating an environment in which individuals feel valued, and facilitating cohesion within the team. Research conducted on teams shows that productivity, innovation, creativity, decision making, quality, problem solving, and the use of all resources are all increased or enhanced as a result of people working in team structures. Also, team fails is also widely documented and it is often a result of the poor leadership according to Hill 2004. This is the end of our presentation on teams. I would like to thank everyone for your undivided attention. These are our citations for the presentations and references.